One of the most powerful and influential forms of music, rock music, predates way back to the late 1940s and the early 1950s. What started out as simple rock and roll in the United States later paved way to the evolution of significant subgenres and sub-subgenres in rock. We can barely count them on our fingers: acid rock, Christian rock, progressive rock, heavy metal, and so many more. And as for sub-subgenres, we can see heavy metal being further broken down into thrash metal, death metal, power metal, etc. Today we'll be tapping into one of such sub-subgenres, that is glam metal, also known as hair metal, and we'll explain one of its last ever bands, Firehouse, who managed to survive a natural change of events that caused the end of glam metal. If you were asked to distinguish the era of glam metal from its predecessors, you should only look at two things. One, their music, and second, their glamour. Although glam metal started gaining prominence in the 1980s, its origins could actually be traced to the year 1978, when Van Halen made their debut breakthrough into heavy metal. Their lead guitarist Eddie Van Halen in a way defined and shaped the sound and groove of glam metal and took rock music to a different dimension. With his inventive tapping technique in Eruption, his arrangement of striking melodies, and the spontaneous licks and tricks, Van Halen did nothing but force others to take note. And that's where the trickle-down effect of the 1980s started. But hold up, don't get mistaken. Glam metal could also be recognized by its image and lifestyle. While it heavily borrowed its fashion and glitter from the glam rock era, their lifestyle of drugs, sex, and regular parties was the actual driving factor to their popularity. A perfect example again is Van Halen, but this time their lead singer David Lee Roth, who despite his fashionable leather pants, energetic performances, and hair all sprayed up, was still known for his antics as a wild man and a non-stop booze party train. So on one side you had the music where pop-oriented hooks and riffs transformed traditional heavy metal into power ballads and harmonies, and on the other, the glitz and glamour of these bands, slowly but steadily enticing a shift in rock paradigm. And guess what happened next? MTV. In 1981, MTV was launched and it primarily focused on running music videos and albums, including those of glam metal. This convergence of MTV and glam metal perfectly set up for what was to come in the next decade. Motley Crue, Quiet Riot, Def Leppard, and even Bon Jovi were the first ones to hit the ground running, following which the decade did two things. It either fostered new glam metal bands or pushed traditional rock bands into adopting this genre. Fortunately for us, this genre produced multiple classics like Home Sweet Home, Every Rose Has Its Thorn,
Every rose has its thorn,
and Heaven.
Heaven isn't too far away.
But just like every musical era, glam metal had run its full course and finally collapsed in the early 1990s. There are multiple reasons behind this. Some say that the loss of key band members and the insurgence of grunge music were instrumental to its death, while others claim that the infamous antics or toxic culture of the era were the final nails in its coffin. So where does Firehouse fit in all of this? Firehouse made a late entry into the glam metal scene in 1990 and was possibly the last notable band to grace that era. Its self-titled album, Firehouse, had literally set alight the music industry despite the rising prominence of grunge music. In fact, this album beat the likes of Nirvana and Alice in Chains to win Best New Hard Rock / Heavy Metal Band of 1991 in the AMAs. This was quite a feat considering the views developed against hair metal at the time. Outdated, hair farmers, and of course the general dislike or distaste for that type of music. Apparently no band had even congratulated Firehouse for their award that night except Slaughter, who had passed on the award. Anyways, they didn't really care much about it because they were probably too busy going through a wave of emotions on stage.
We would like to thank our family and friends, our great record label, Sony, Epic Records, and Tommy Mottola.
Time to introduce this quartet. The founding member and lead guitarist of the band was Bill Levity. His earlier band, White Heat, needed a drummer at the time and he entertained auditions for it. And then enters Michael Foster with an ugly green drum set. It was his ability to play drums and sing at the same time that absolutely impressed Bill. Soon the pair of them together discovered CJ Snare and Perry Richardson, who were performing for another band called Max Warrior. Snare was the lead singer and Perry the bassist. So eventually the four of them decided to get together and don the name of White Heat. However, for trademark reasons, they had to change their name to, of course, Firehouse. After signing for Epic Records in 1989, their debut album next year released an absolute hit called Love of a Lifetime. Often touted as the best wedding song ever, the single went on to peak in Billboard's Hot 100 and sold a minimum of 500,000 copies then. CJ Snare wrote the song with the help of his keyboard and little drum machine at a holiday.
That's how I wrote Love of a Lifetime, Don't Treat Me Bad. A lot of Firehouse songs are actually written on keyboards and then we transcribe them to guitar.
He had no idea that this song would go on to become an absolute standard and classic in the industry, and never even intended it to be a wedding song. The impeccable asset of CJ, like all lead singers, was his voice. He attributes his voice to three things: genetics, training, and lifestyle. With hits such as All She Wrote, and Don't Treat Me Bad, it's a shame that CJ's voice, and indeed Firehouse, were not featured more in radio stations then. Fortunately, till this day, CJ's voice still resonates through his live performances, which matches that same impressive range, tone, and timbre. Firehouse released a second album in 1992 and again succeeded in producing hits, while songs like Sleeping With You and Reach for the Sky claimed their plaudits in the album. Firehouse hit the music charts with their power ballad, When I Look Into Your Eyes. Personally, this song beats the likes of Love of a Lifetime only because of the scale change in the ultimate chorus that edges the song to another level. Despite the success of the first two albums, Firehouse could not compete against the increasing public demand for grunge music. It became safe to say that they were exploring options to somehow extend the relevance of the band. So for their third album in 1995, 3, they brought on Ron Nevison as their producer. Ron at the time had world-class success with bands like Led Zeppelin, Ozzy Osbourne, Europe, and others. But this did not change the band's luck much, except of course the release of I Live My Life For You. This song too hit the music charts in the US and was a massive compliment to a band that stuck to their guns. The albums that followed did not meet the same success of its predecessors. Category 5 was in fact the last album between the original quartet, after which Perry Richardson decided to leave the band for personal reasons. He was later replaced by a line of bassists, Bruce Wavell, Dario Sexas, and ultimately Alan McKenzie. The question does remain: how did Firehouse survive the end of glam metal, especially when neck deep into the grunge era? The answer? Overseas. Firehouse until their third album only toured within the US, and they began to realize that they could not sustain the level of success they once had. Hence they began touring in Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines, and even Brazil. They even signed with a new label called Pawnee Canyon from Japan after saying goodbye to Epic Records, specifically because Epic Records at the time made Pearl Jam their #1 baby and project. In a recent interview, Bill Levity explained that Firehouse had never foreseen the tough times that they would have to face. Nonetheless, they worked hard and kept themselves busy with gigs in Asia. And before they knew it, promoters wanted them back again in the continent for other similar tours. They even traveled to India in 2004 and had become the first major international rock band to have played in the Northeast. During those performances, Firehouse were astonished when stadiums full of 40,000 people maintained absolute synchrony and resonance to their hit songs. The whole picture says it all, and even CJ Snare agrees to this, that the most gratifying part of their Firehouse journey was connecting with fans on stage. The energy, the drive, and the demand from the crowd to replay all those 1990 historic hits was the real payoff for the band. It is safe to say that Firehouse more than survived the death of glam metal. Instead of giving up in the US when their music was going out of style, they made that extra effort to reach out to other fans around the world. Crucially, the band, who started off shy and speechless in their historic AMA, mingling with the Steve Perrys, the Michael Jacksons, and the Eddie Van Halens, still to this day continue to release tour dates for their shows. And their songs? Well, one of them just made it to the Peacemaker track. So if you ask me, Firehouse is indeed the undying epitome of relevance and fame in rock music. That was cool rock stuff here. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and I'll speak more of the same next time. Bye for now.